one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
We get this story from the Valley News out of New Hampshire. Troy, New Hampshire police officers have made 13 immigration arrests this year, mostly people stopped for alleged driving violations in the small Cheshire County town, according to Chief David Ellis Jr., the police chief. He said Wednesday that 2 of the arrests were made outside the courthouse in Keene, New Hampshire. Now, immigration enforcement traditionally has been a federal task, but an executive order President Donald Trump signed on January 20th requires that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement authorize state and local police to also participate. The Troy Police Department is among a dozen law enforcement agencies in New Hampshire and 1,200 across the nation that have entered into 287G agreements with Immigration Customs Enforcement. The agreements are named for a section of immigration law that gives local and state police agencies the authority to perform immigration enforcement. Critics of the 287G agreements say they lead to arrests without a lawful basis, erode trust in local law enforcement, when we get back to that, and waste money and time that would be better spent in the community rather than on federal civil immigration work. Proponents say the pacts enhance public safety, expand the reach of immigration enforcement, and can lead to the arrest of people who are not U.S. citizens and face criminal charges. Quote, "I feel we're doing something good," said Chief Ellis Jr. He said that in an interview in his office. Ellis said he's happy to have immigrants who are here legally in the community, but that wherever a person is from, if you do something wrong, you have to answer for it. Now, Fernanda Mara Romero, an attorney with Celadon Law in Marlborough, Massachusetts, I can't read today, represented one of the 13 people Troy police arrested. Higo Davico Napolio, 23, a construction worker from Brazil, was a passenger in a car that was being driven through Troy on October 6th when police pulled it over on a speeding allegation. Napolio was on his way home to Lowell, Massachusetts, when police arrested him, Romero said. He then spent a month in federal custody until he was released following a bond hearing. Romero said Napolio, who has a valid work authorization card, has been in a years-long process of trying to become a legal permanent resident. In previous proceedings, the government had dropped a removal case against him because he had been classified as a special immigrant juvenile, she said. That classification provides a potential pathway to permanent residency for some people under 21 who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by their parents. Romero said Napolio was also given deferred action status, which delays his deportation. She said her advice to people concerned about their immigration status is not to come to New Hampshire. Stay out of New Hampshire. Said people are being stopped for allegedly speeding, but it could be anything, Romero said. You could be involved in a motor vehicle accident, and all of a sudden, there are police officers involved. So there are many different scenarios when you could be involved with law enforcement while crossing New Hampshire that could lead to immigration detention, she said. Now, G.S. Bissonnette, legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of New Hampshire, said it is concerning when any police department enters into a 287G agreement. He said that when local departments enforce immigration law, immigrants become less likely to communicate with police or seek help from them when they are a victim of a crime. Bissonnette said that once ICE detains someone, they can be held in custody for weeks or months until they can get a bond hearing. He said, quote, people are being picked up and detained regardless of whether they are a danger, regardless of whether they are a flight risk, regardless of whether they have committed a crime, he said. He said that person is being separated from their children, their partner, their parents. We should all imagine what it would be like if we were placed in that situation. That is what this regime is designed to do, unfortunately, cause for these community members a sense of dread and terror. That's what he said. Now, a key issue in a number of immigration cases is simply making sure the defendant has a day in court and a chance to be released on bond rather than being confined indefinitely, Bissonnette said. Cheshire County Sheriff Eli Rivera, whose agency provides security for the courthouse, said he was called by a constituent who was upset that one of his employees got picked up by Troy police outside the Keene building. Rivera said this arrest on November 13th was the second time Troy police had taken someone into custody on the sidewalk outside the courthouse, with the other time coming a week earlier. Rivera said such police activity may cause people to fear going to their court hearings. He said if anyone has something that brings them to court and they are not documented, now the fear will be, is ICE going to be outside the courthouse waiting for me? Or is a local police agency working with ICE going to be waiting for me? And that fear is going to travel real quick like a wild brush fire. That's what he said. Rivera said he's happy to work with federal law enforcement partners concerning people accused of violent crimes. He said, I'd be the first person to bring them to ICE because that's the kind of behavior we're trying to stop, violent crime. On the other hand, he questions helping the federal agency apprehend someone for potential deportation when they are just making a living here, trying to provide for the family, and they get a speeding ticket or something minor. Now, former Democratic State Representative Joe Shapiro of Keene is among a group of advocates for immigrants who have been meeting the law enforcement officials to discuss their 287G agreements. He met with Chief Ellis Jr. on November 24th, said, I think that there has been a national campaign to demonize and terrorize immigrants. Shapiro went on, I think that there has been an alarming reduction in due process rights and constantly changing rules and regulation that have really been hurtful to immigrants and in turn has been hurtful to businesses that employ immigrants. Now, Chief Ellis said he and two of his officers have been trained and certified to do immigration enforcement. Yeah, okay. Under his department's agreement with ICE, he said he has made 12 of the 13 arrests, mostly people just passing through town. New Hampshire Route 12 goes through Troy. It is a primary route for people traveling between Boston, Massachusetts, and Keene, New Hampshire, and has a speed limit of 55 miles per hour in some places, which drops to 30 miles per hour in the city of Troy. He said, we stop a lot of cars. He said he or his officers inquire about immigration status during a traffic stop if they have a reasonable suspicion to do so. Not having a driver's license could lead to such a suspicion, he said. If necessary, they will check a person's immigration status through a database. If that search fails to find the person or determines that the person is in the country without proper immigration authorization, Ellis calls his immigration customs enforcement contact in Manchester to see if he should deliver them to federal custody in that city. He wants to be a federal guy. He has also brought people to the Strafford County Jail in Dover, New Hampshire, which has an agreement to hold ICE detainees. Ellis said another officer provides law enforcement coverage in Troy while he is on the road to Manchester or Dover. Got one. Ellis said he felt bad, yeah, right, sure you did, during the first few arrests, and sometimes still does, but feels people should go through proper immigration processes. He said they're not bad guys, he said, referring to the people he arrested. Most did not appear to be facing issues beyond their immigration status, he noted, but he added that at least one had underlying charges of robbery and assault. He said about half of the 13 people arrested did not have a driver's license. Ellis signed the 287G agreement with ICE in March. Under it, his police department is responsible for personnel expenses associated with the agreement, including overtime. The police chief said recent changes to the program should lead to ICE picking up overtime costs. A November 3rd budget report posted on the town's website showed that the police department, which has 3 full-time employees, had exceeded its $25,000 yearly overtime budget by about $2,200, or nearly 9%, with 2 months left in the year, November and December. But when all of the police department's operational expenses are considered, it was nearly 23% under its yearly budget of $576,608. Richard H. Thaxton III, a Troy selectman, said the Troy Police Department's decision to participate in the agreement with ICE is not something that came before the select board. He said the real question is it draining resources from the day-to-day operations of Troy? And the answer is, at this time, it does not appear to be. So you're okay with it. But the one thing I want to get back to, and I'm just done here, but listen to this one thing. The guy, the driver's speeding. They get pulled over. The passenger is arrested for immigration, being here as an unlawful immigrant. The passenger. I looked into it, and New Hampshire, you're not required to give your ID unless the police can reasonably articulate the suspicion of a crime being committed. So in other words, the only time you really have to, it said New Hampshire is a stop and ID state, but you're not required to give your ID over. This is what I read. So why was the passenger found to be an unlawful immigrant? Because he gave over his ID. They do that in California too. I see traffic stops and they start pulling people out of the car and they say, "Can I have your ID? I need your ID." And I'm like, whoa, you're a passenger, dude. This is California. New Hampshire's similar. If you're a passenger in a car and they get pulled over for speeding and the cop says, "I need your ID," you say, "I wasn't driving, he was." "No, I'm asking for your ID." "Well, I'm a passenger." And if you get arrested, you file a civil rights claim for a Fourth Amendment violation because you weren't committing a crime. You're just riding in a car. That's not a crime. You say, "Oh, I'm a passenger." Is it a felony or a misdemeanor to be a passenger? Because I haven't committed a crime. He was driving. That's what you say, guys. You guys are going to have to learn your rights. When you're a passenger in a car and the cop says, "I need your ID," you go, "For what? I had my seatbelt on." "Well, because you're riding in the car, I'm going to ID everybody." "You're not IDing me because I ain't committing a crime." And if he arrests you, file a lawsuit because he violated your civil rights. I'm telling you guys, you're going to have to start standing up for yourself. "Well, I don't want to do that. It's easier just to give your ID." Yeah, it's easier just to give up your rights. They thought of that in Berlin in 1939, too. We'll just give up our rights so we don't end up on the train. No. And some people are going to get upset at me for saying this, but I served in the United States Army for 15 years, and I didn't do it to give up my rights. I spent that time in the military because I absolutely, what's the word I'm looking for? My rights are valuable to me. I spent time protecting these rights. You think I'm just going to give them up because? That's why I go out and record the police, because I want to ensure that people's rights are protected. I did it for 15 years. I'm doing it now.